Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tips. My name is Julian, and unfortunately I can't make a normal episode right now, but I do still want to record something to help you guys out with the trades that happen during the trade deadline and the possible implications that they have. Now, I've already released a series of tweets about this, but if you guys want to hear it from my mouth, well, here it is. Now, the first trade that I'm going to talk about is the Clojure trade from the Flyers to the Florida Panthers, and that has some huge fantasy implications because likely Giroux plays right away on that top line with Barkov and Verhaeghe, and possibly that top power play as well. So Giroux's value actually has gone up from being on Philly. Now, he had a really big role on Philly, but on Florida, playing with guys like that, you can bet that he's going to put up a lot of points, and therefore is a really, really solid fantasy add if you, for some reason, he's available on your free agency. Now, there are a lot of other trades, and let's go ahead and talk about the Ricardo Raquel deal to the Penguins. And Ricardo Raquel, if the Penguins leave their lines the way they are right now, Raquel could slot into that second line with Rust and with Malkin, while the top line remains Crosby, Gensel, and Rodriguez, which is really, really solid two lines. And then you still have Jeff Carter on that third line, and then Heinen would join him on that third line now, which is pretty solid. And if Raquel does play in the top six, I do think he has a solid amount of fantasy value, but he will not be seeing power play one time, that's almost for sure. Then obviously Marc-Andre Fleury to the Minnesota Wild is a huge, huge deal. Fleury is now going to get a lot more wins in Minnesota, right? He's a great goalie, and in Minnesota, he's going to win some games. He might start a few less games because Talbot still will start some games, but Fleury is definitely, his value has gone up a solid amount by being on Minnesota. Now, in Chicago, Lekken is now the starting goalie because Fleury is now gone. So, guys, if you're in desperate need for a goalie that's actually going to get the majority of the starts, well, Lekken is that guy for you and should be picked up. Then I have Scott Wedgwood to Dallas. Doesn't seem like a huge trade, but it does mean that for the immediate future, Vejmelka is the starter in Arizona. Vejmelka is a really solid goalie. He showed this year that he can do pretty well. He's getting destroyed with a ridiculous amount of shots every single game, but he's hanging in there, and he's, you know what? If you need a starting goalie, guys, there are a lot worse options than Vejmelka. Now, let's go on to Hampus Lindholm to the Boston Bruins. At the moment, I don't think there's a crazy amount of fantasy implications, unfortunately, because Boston's already got Charlie McAvoy on that top power play, so at best I think Lindholm plays in the second power play. It's possible that his peripherals do go up or whatnot in Boston, but for now I'm not too excited about Lindholm, at least in a fantasy-wise. Then I have Jordano to the Maple Leafs. And that's kind of an interesting one because Jordano's peripherals actually should go up for the Leafs, and he could potentially be manning their second power play as well. So he definitely has some value there. And I think his overall value has gone up because now his peripherals should be a lot better for a team like the Maple Leafs. And then I have Derek Brassard to the Edmonton Oilers, and that basically negates any value he has, because Derek Brassard was actually manning their top line recently in Philly, but being on the Oilers, he probably is going to be playing on their third line. So if he does, I mean, the third line in the Oilers is not necessarily the best place to put up some fantasy points. So not my favorite spot, but if he does end up playing in the top six, then I'll reassess that. And okay, maybe Brassard does have a little bit of value. And then I have Cabo Cockenan. That got traded to the Sharks after the Minnesota Wild got Fleury, right? They decided to deal Cockenan because then they had three goalies. So Cockenan to the Sharks basically sets up Cockenan and Reimer for a time split in San Jose. I think they're both going to start 50% of the games. So Cockenan, his value is pretty much the same. He is starting about half the games anyway. And Reimer, his value's obviously gone down because instead of starting all the games, he's only going to start about half of them. Then I have Arcturi Lekken to the Colorado Avalanche, and Lekken is a really, really solid player. A lot of people don't realize that, but he's really, really good all around the ice. I don't think he necessarily has a lot of fantasy value unless they deploy him in their top six. Right now, Landeskog is injured, so there actually is a chance that he could be playing top six, potentially on a line with Kadri. if that happens, then he definitely does have some fantasy value, but I'll wait and see what the lines are like before I go and pick up Arcturi, Lekken. Then I have Max Domi to the Carolina Hurricanes, right? And that could have some value. Same thing if he plays in their top 6. If he plays on the second line with Vincent Trocheck or on the top line with Sebastian Aho, that's actually some really solid deployment, because Carolina was kind of short on right wingers. Their right wingers haven't been the best this year. They have Fast, they have Natchez, but Domi could play on the right wing. So if he does and they play him on the top line or second line, he definitely could pitch in some points and could actually have some decent fantasy value and could be a decent pickup in deeper leagues. And then I have Vetrano and Cop to the Rangers, and those guys are going to fill out their top 6 in all likelihood. Cop will probably play on the top line with Zibanejad and with Kreider. I could be wrong, but to me it seems like that's the likely thing to do, because Lafreniere hasn't exactly been incredible on that line, so that will likely knock him back down to the third line, and then Cop will play top line. And Vetrano has already been playing on that second line with Panarin and Strome, and he's also addable in deeper leagues, but if Cop does get that top line spot, definitely a fantastic add. And then I have Evgeny Dadonov, and he's going through a little bit of an issue because apparently he had Anaheim on there's no trade list or whatever, but he is an Anaheim Duck right now, as of right now. And if that is the case, he probably gained a little bit of value as well. I mean, I'm not crazy about him, but he possibly does take Raquel's spot in the top 6 in Anaheim, and therefore, maybe does, get a little bit of value. I'm not adding him outside the deepest of leagues, but if you're super desperate for someone to add in a deep league, Dadonov could potentially put up some points in the top 6 in Anaheim if that is in fact where they decide to deploy him. And then I have the Hagel to Tampa Bay. They also got Nick Paul, but Nick Paul, he's going to play third or fourth line in Tampa Bay, so he doesn't have a whole lot of value. But Hagel is an interesting one because he did play super well for Chicago this year, but it doesn't seem like he's being deployed in the best way right now in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has him on their third line currently, and if he does stay there, I'm not crazy about his fantasy value. If he gets moved up to the first or second line in the next few days, then yes, suddenly I'm like, yeah, Hagel, I'm going to take a look at him, and maybe I'll consider adding him and hope that he does get moved up. But if he doesn't get moved up to the top couple lines in the next few days, he's someone that I'm going to be dropping. And I believe that's it, guys. Yeah, that's it. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you watching this video. There's also the Ben Chiarot trade that happened a few days ago. Ben Chiarot is actually someone that it's an interesting case because Ekblad's injured, right? And he's gone for the rest of the season. So who's going to take that spot on the top power play? Right now, we don't really know, but Chiarot is probably not going to be that guy, but he still should be putting up some decent peripherals in Florida. So look for that. I think Brandon Montour gets that spot on the top power play. And if that's the case, then Brandon Montour has gained a lot of fantasy value. Could also be Uyghur, but we'll have to wait and see what Florida actually does their first game without Ekblad in the lineup. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. Please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Sorry I couldn't record this video as usual, but hopefully you guys appreciate that I'm trying to put out content anyway. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.